everybody. It's Josh with Denver Comic Con TV, and I'm here with Sue Duff. Sue, thank you for joining me today. Tell me all about the new book you got coming out.
Oh, it's exciting. It just came out, and it's the last book, book 5 in the series. So the series is done. But yeah, it's very exciting. My book narrator is here for my audiobooks. He came out from New Jersey, and so he's at the table with me all weekend. And he was so funny. He was telling somebody who came up to the table, yeah, from about the second chapter on, it just doesn't let up. He goes, it's so intense, and it pulls everything together through the whole series, and oh my gosh. So I think I pretty much wound everything up really well, but it was very bittersweet because I had spent years with these characters in one form or another, and it was hard to kind of say goodbye. I was kind of sobbing those last few chapters as I read them, because not so much that some people die, but also because I knew it was kind of putting a finishing touch to everything. But I'm excited to move on to other things too.
Well, and that's something that we talked about last year,
right.
Was the completion of the story and how you might feel about that when the time came. And I do believe you said that you'll have to just cross that bridge when you get there, but there will be some emotion for sure. How was it when you started writing this last book? I know we were in the process last year, but you said you were sobbing towards the end. Did you want it to kind of keep going, or did you say, Sue, I gotta end this?
You know, I think I was ready to end the story because I would love to move on to something fresh. But when the time came, then it was like, well, you could break off with this tangent, or you could be doing some of this. And I actually heard from a few fans already that, well, you know, we'd really love to see Jared's story, or we'd really love. So, you know, if there's enough outcry, I'm sure I can be tempted to do something like that. While at the same time, you know, certainly working on something fresh and new for myself too.
And speaking of that, I mean, not to throw what your actual ideas out there, but what other types of things would you like to do?
Yeah, I have lots of ideas. That's part of the problem, is now I have a plethora of stuff going around in my head. So far, nothing that's totally, absolutely exciting to the point where I can't wait to sit down and start it. I'm traveling to the UK this summer for 3 weeks, and there's a part of me that's almost holding off, hoping that I just might be inspired in a way I don't even know yet until I go on my trip. So we'll see. You know, I'll be starting something here soon, one way or the other. But yeah, I'm kind of keeping the door open, seeing where it takes me at this point.
And you know, what do you do in the meantime to keep the muscle trained? Do you continue writing just to write, or do you have a daily diary or blog that you do?
Right.
What do you do to keep that muscle trained?
Well, I also I'm a contributing author to Wicked Ink Books, and so our next anthology is due out in October, and I just now last week submitted my novella for that. It came out over 15,000 words, so I can definitely call it a novella and not really a short story this time around. But that was a lot of fun to be working on. But there was also this shortened kind of deadline in mind, so it was easier for me to stick to that and get that taken care of pretty timely. When it comes down to a novel, that's a lot more commitment and a lot more energy that it's required. So there's a part of you, at least with me, that's kind of hard to get started knowing that that's what I'm going to be living and breathing for the next several weeks or months. But once you're underway, then the story just, you know, takes me over, and I can't wait then to get it written and to crank it out. So I'm a kind of a slow starter, but once I get going, then I can be pretty prolific when the time comes.
So do you start with your overarching story kind of outlined, and then kind of have all your sub-stories, you know, underneath, or do you just kind of fly at the seat of your pants and kind of have an idea of your overarching story?
You know, I'm probably probably much more of what's known as a pantser than a plotter. I've tried to actually plot my stories out on paper, sticky notes everywhere, storyboard, the whole bit. That's very painful for me. And when I tried to do that with the second book in, the Ware Chronicles series, I ended up really getting this awful mushy middle, and which my developmental editor was not hesitant to point out. So I kind of threw all the notes away and everything, and I just started writing by the seat of my pants again. And sure enough, it ended up getting nominated for Indie Writer of the Year. So that's just how I write, but to give myself some kind of credit, I probably think about my stories for months, and then when I go to sit down, I can crank them out in 6 to 8 weeks. But I know the story, it's just in my head and not somewhere on paper, because once I get started, oftentimes my stories take a turn in directions I never know beforehand, and I know what has to happen in the book. I just am never, I'm not really planned out about how I'm going to get there. And in that sense, I think my stories stay fresh because they kind of write themselves.
That's really awesome. Creatively, when did you really decide that this was what you wanted to do? Instead of being a window washer or something, it's like, I'm writing, or you also said you did speech therapy off camera. But what was the driving factor to be a writer?
I loved doing it when I was in high school, and then I had a college professor that told me I couldn't write. And I took that way too vividly and too hard, and I didn't sit down and write for almost 20 years or more. But when I did start back up again, it was really just to kind of distract me from my teenage son, who was driving me insane at the time, and just to try to find a way of coping with a lot that was going on in my life. And I ended up remembering, once I was underway with it again, how much I loved it. But I had never taken a creative writing class before, or any kind of coursework in college or anything about it. And so as an adult, I was smarter, and I decided that's what I should do if that's really where I wanted to go with my free time. And my creative writing professor saw something in me. She pushed me to join a writing group, a critique group, and to keep pursuing it. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that I entered a writing contest, and I was a finalist. Totally unexpected. I just entered the contest to try to get some feedback for my writing, and it was that kind of pivotal moment that told me, you could really be doing something with this if you want it bad enough. And that's kind of how it all started.
That's really awesome. It's just a driving force. It's something you wanted, you chased it, and now you're here.
It was a very conscious thing to pursue it at that point. Yeah.
Tell me quickly the overarching story of this final book. So to give a taste of what's to come, or what has become.
Yeah, my audiobook narrator being here at the con, it's just really exciting because he's such a huge fan, besides, narrating all of the books for Audible. And he's so funny. I heard him talking to somebody about the fact that she just throws everything together. So you think that there's all these disconnected, kind of events and details and stuff through the first 4 books, but it's not until you start reading that 5th book that you see that there's a connection to all of it. And I just pull it all together. And it's a pretty crazy, climactic entire book, for the ending. It doesn't let up very much after that first chapter. But it's fun because I do feel like I gave everyone not only a good ride along the way, but an exciting, climactic finish to the whole series. Some people you may appreciate are still alive, and others that are not so much, that they were, killed off in the end. But, I truly can say that I finished this story the way I always envisioned it.
And so where can people find your newest book, the whole series, and you on the internets and everything else.
You can find me on Sue Duff, SUEDUFF.com, on the web. I'm Sue Duff Writer on Facebook, Sue Duff 55 on Twitter, and Sue Duff Author on Instagram. My books are available wherever books are sold, and they come in all formats. They come in paperback, hardback, Audible, and also on, of course, ebook and Amazon. So, yeah, I'm pretty available if you just look me up.
Awesome. And you said your narrator will be here all weekend at the show?
Yeah, he's at the table. He's happy to talk about the process of what it means to narrate books for, audio content, and just excited to have come out from New Jersey and be a part of the event this year, especially because the series is all complete. And and it was great to meet him. We had to keep texting each other when we were standing in line today because we didn't know what each other looked like. It was hilarious. So it's been great to sit down and just visit with him even so far today. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us this year, and hope to see you again.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.